He asked her softly, "What are you thinking?" She looked at him, calm, unreadable, and said, "You don't want to know, or maybe you do." The first time he notices her, it's a Thursday evening, soft jazz playing low in the background, rain misting against the wide glass windows of the cafe. She sits at the same table every visit, the one near the corner where the light falls in streaks across her face. There's something about her quiet that draws him in, not loneliness, not sadness, just depth. The kind that doesn't ask to be understood, only witnessed. He works behind the counter, sketchbook always open beside the register. Between orders, he draws, hands, faces, fragments of stories he'll never tell. She's become part of that sketchbook now, though she doesn't know it. A curve of a jawline, a tilt of a wrist, the shadow of a smile that never quite reaches her eyes. When she speaks, it's never loud. Her voice has this low, steady calm, like she's used to people listening without interrupting. Their first conversation is accidental. She asks for an extra napkin, and he makes a joke about the weather trying to drown the city. She laughs, quietly. Not forced. The kind of laugh that carries warmth beneath composure. After that, their exchanges become part of the cafe's rhythm, soft, unhurried, existing somewhere between routine and ritual. He starts to notice the details, the way she always reads with one hand curled around her cup, the faint scent of vanilla and old books that lingers when she leaves, the subtle shift in her tone when she talks about the past. There's something magnetic in the way she carries herself, not trying to be noticed, but impossible to ignore. Her beauty isn't in perfection, it's in presence. She looks like someone who's lived enough to know what really matters, and enough to hide the parts that still hurt. He finds himself timing his breaks to match her visits. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they just share silence. And in those moments, when she looks up from her book and meets his eyes, there's a flicker of something neither of them name. Respect. Curiosity. A quiet pull that feels both wrong and right at once. One evening, the rain is heavier than usual. The cafe is nearly empty. She stays later than she should, finishing her tea long after the others have gone. He wipes down the counter slowly, not wanting to end the night. She closes her book, stands, and walks to the counter, hesitating before speaking. "You always look like you're listening to more than words," she says softly, a faint smile tugging at her lips. He freezes, not because he doesn't know what to say, but because she saw something he didn't mean to show. He opens his mouth, searching for a reply, but all that comes out is a quiet chuckle. "Maybe I am." Her smile deepens for a second, then fades into something gentler, almost wistful. "That's a dangerous habit," she murmurs, slipping her umbrella open. "People might start telling you things you're not ready to hear." And before he can ask what she means, she's gone, walking into the rain with the same graceful stillness she carried inside. That night, he sketches again, this time not her face, but her words. "You always look like you're listening to more than words." He doesn't realize it yet, but that's the moment the story quietly begins. The next few weeks pass like a song replayed softly in the background, familiar, comforting, but laced with something he can't name. She keeps coming to the cafe, same time, same table, same unhurried calm. It's no longer coincidence, it's rhythm. He starts to expect her, and she, he senses, expects him too. Their conversations begin to stretch, spilling past casual pleasantries into small, unguarded pieces of truth. She tells him about her work, teaching literature at a nearby college, the way her students surprise her, exhaust her, sometimes save her from her own thoughts. Her words carry the weight of someone who's lived through both tenderness and ache. He listens like he's memorizing a story. The sound of her voice, low and warm, has a cadence that settles into his chest. She speaks carefully, but every now and then, something slips, a glimpse of loneliness she quickly disguises with humor, a softness she tries not to let linger. He doesn't pry. He just listens, and she notices that. One evening, she closes her book halfway through a sentence, eyes resting on him. You always listen too closely, she says, half smiling. It's unsettling. He laughs, rubbing the back of his neck. Maybe I just like your stories. She tilts her head, amused. Careful. Stories can get under your skin. After that, their banter takes on a quiet intimacy, never flirtatious, but charged with something deeper. He begins to recognize her silences as much as her words, the way her gaze drifts when she's thinking, the tiny exhale before she changes the subject, the faint sadness she carries like perfume. One night, the cafe empties early. She stays, as usual, lingering over her tea. He finishes wiping the tables and, instead of going back behind the counter, he sits across from her. No invitation, just an unspoken understanding that it's okay. The rain outside blurs the streetlights into pale gold smudges. Her book lies open, untouched. For a long time, neither of them speaks. The only sound is the quiet tapping of rain against glass. Then he asks, gently, without expectation, "What are you thinking?" She looks up, meeting his gaze. Her expression doesn't change right away, but something flickers in her eyes, surprise, maybe, or hesitation. Then her lips curve into that small, knowing smile he's come to recognize. "You don't want to know," she says softly. And after a pause, deliberate, almost teasing, adds, "Or maybe you do." The words hang in the air like a secret between them. He tries to laugh it off, but it's weak, uncertain. The way she looks at him, steady, unblinking, almost daring, leaves him breathless. It's not just a response, it's a challenge. She's drawing a line and asking if he's brave enough to cross it. Before he can answer, she stands, slipping her coat over her shoulders. "Good night," she says simply, but her tone carries something else, a quiet invitation wrapped in restraint. He watches her leave, the echo of her words still pulsing in his chest. "You don't want to know, or maybe you do." For the first time, he realizes he's no longer just curious about her. He's curious about what she's holding back, and why she wants him to be careful finding out. That night, as he locks the cafe doors, he feels it, the shift. The space between them is no longer ordinary. It's charged now, alive with the kind of tension that doesn't need to be spoken to be felt. Their routine deepens without plan or permission. She still comes to the cafe, always claiming the same table, but now he joins her more often, not as a barista, not as a stranger, but as something undefined that neither dares to name. It begins with simple moments. He walks her home after closing, at first because it's late, because it's raining again, because it feels natural. But soon, it becomes more than courtesy. Their steps start to fall in rhythm, their shadows stretch together under streetlights. The quiet between them grows richer, layered with everything unsaid. She talks, sometimes, not about herself, but about the world through her lens. How she notices the way people carry silence in different shapes. How time feels heavier when you stop expecting it to change. He listens, fascinated not by her stories, but by the sincerity beneath them. She speaks like someone who's learned the cost of honesty, yet still believes in its worth. Once, she says softly, "Do you ever wish you could freeze a moment, not because it's perfect, but because it's almost something?" He doesn't know how to answer, but he feels it. Every night with her feels like that, almost something. They never plan their walks, yet somehow, they happen. Sometimes they stop at a bench near the old bridge, watching the water shimmer under the dim street lamps. Her hand always rests on the railing, delicate, steady, and his always ends up near hers, close enough to feel warmth, far enough to pretend it's coincidence. One evening, their hands brush. Just lightly. Skin against skin, fleeting and electric. Neither pulls away right away. The air seems to hold its breath. The world shrinks to that one fragile touch. She's the one who breaks it, her voice low, almost apologetic. "You should be careful," she murmurs. Some lines, once crossed, can't be redrawn. He wants to say he doesn't care about lines. He wants to say that maybe some lines are meant to be blurred. But he doesn't. Instead, he watches her profile against the dim streetlight, graceful, composed, heartbreakingly distant. She doesn't look at him when she adds, "You should stop walking me home." He nods slowly, but his chest tightens. The words sting, not because they're harsh, but because they sound like protection, for both of them. "I know," he says quietly. But they both know he doesn't mean it. That night, when he gets home, he can still feel the ghost of her hand against his. He sketches again, this time, not her face, but the space between two hands that almost touch. He tells himself it's just fascination, just curiosity, but he knows it isn't. It's want. The kind that doesn't burn fast, it smolders quietly, restrained by what should be, yet drawn toward what could be. In his head, her voice repeats, "You should stop walking me home." But in his heart, it sounds more like a promise than a warning. And somewhere deep down, he understands, what's growing between them isn't just attraction. It's the dangerous, beautiful space between want and should, and neither of them is ready to step back. It's another late evening, rain whispering against the cafe windows, the city outside dim and half asleep. He's closing up, lights turned low, music faded to a gentle hum. She's there again, sitting by the window, tracing slow circles in the fogged glass with her fingertip. There's something fragile in the way she moves tonight, like she's carrying the weight of thoughts too quiet to name. He's wiping the counter when he glances at her reflection in the glass. She looks distant, eyes lost somewhere far beyond the rain. For a moment, he just watches, not to intrude, but because there's a strange peace in the way she sits in stillness. When he finally walks over, he doesn't speak right away. He just sets a cup of tea down beside her. "You looked like you needed a refill," he says softly. She turns, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You always know when to interrupt," she murmurs. Her voice sounds tired, not physically, but emotionally, the kind of tired that comes from holding back too long. He sits across from her, the chair creaking slightly in the quiet room. Outside, the streetlights flicker through the rain, painting faint gold ripples across her face. She wraps her hands around the cup, and when their fingers brush, neither of them moves. Her skin is warm, her pulse steady, but her eyes, they're full of something unspoken. "You look at people," she says quietly, "like you're trying to remember them forever." He blinks, caught off guard by the honesty in her tone. "Maybe I am," he answers, barely above a whisper. Her gaze softens. "That's a dangerous habit," she says, echoing her words from weeks ago, "because people don't always stay." There's a pause. The kind that holds 100 unsaid things. He watches the rain streak down the window, trying to find the right reply. But before he can, she reaches across the table, her hand finding his. The touch is deliberate this time, slow, gentle, certain. Her fingers rest lightly over his knuckles, her thumb tracing the edge of his hand as if she's memorizing it. "You shouldn't make it so easy to care about you," she whispers. Her words sink into him, tender and sharp at once. He doesn't pull away, he doesn't even breathe for a moment. He feels the warmth of her touch, the quiet tremor behind her composure, the way the world seems to fade into just this, the sound of rain, her hand on his, and the pulse of something alive between them. He finally says, "Maybe I'm not trying to make it easy. Maybe it just is." Her lips part, but no words come out. She looks down, eyes glistening slightly, then lets out a breath that sounds almost like surrender. "You don't know what you're doing," she says softly. "But maybe neither do I." They stay like that for a while, no more words, just the gentle contact, the quiet rhythm of rain against glass. When she finally stands to leave, she lingers by the door, glancing back at him once, her eyes saying what her lips won't. After she's gone, he sits in the silence, hands still tingling where hers had rested. He doesn't sketch that night. He just sits, listening to the rain, letting the moment linger, because some moments aren't meant to be captured. They're meant to be felt, and remembered exactly as they were. The next few days feel strangely hollow. Her absence settles into the cafe like a shadow he can't sweep away. She doesn't come by at her usual hour, doesn't leave her faint scent of vanilla and rain behind. The corner table stays empty, and every time the doorbell chimes, his heart lifts, only to fall again when it isn't her. He tells himself it's fine, that maybe she's busy, that maybe the moment they shared by the window unsettled her as much as it did him. But as nights pass, the silence grows heavier, not just the kind that fills the room, but the kind that lives inside him. When she finally walks in, it's a Thursday. The same night of the week she first caught his attention. She looks the same, and yet not. Her hair is pulled back more loosely, her eyes softer, guarded. There's a small, careful smile when she sees him, but it doesn't reach all the way. "You disappeared," he says, trying to sound light, but the words come out rougher than he intends. She hesitates before answering. "I needed quiet," she says simply. "Sometimes that's all I can afford." He nods, unsure how to read her tone. The tension between them is different now, not new, but deeper, heavier with things unspoken. When she sits down, he joins her without asking. They talk for a while, about nothing that matters. Books, rain, music. But the conversation feels like walking on glass. Every smile, every pause, every glance seems to circle back to that moment, her hand on his, her whisper that night. Finally, he leans forward. "Did I do something wrong?" Her eyes flicker up, startled. "No," she says too quickly. Then, quieter, "You didn't do anything wrong. You just make it hard to stay where I promised myself I would." He doesn't understand at first. Then it hits him, she's not talking about the cafe, or the city, or even him exactly. She's talking about the line they've both been pretending not to see. "You don't owe me your concern," she adds, voice trembling slightly. He shakes his head, almost smiling. "Maybe I want to." The simplicity of his words disarms her. For a second, her eyes close, as if steadying herself. "You don't understand what you're asking for," she whispers. He pauses, watching her, the curve of her jaw, the way her fingers tighten around her cup. "Then tell me," he says gently. She lets out a shaky laugh, half relief, half surrender. "I've spent years learning how to be at peace," she murmurs. "How to keep my heart quiet. I can't let someone take that apart just because they see me." The words pierce him, not because they're cold, but because they're honest. She isn't pushing him away out of pride, it's fear, protection, maybe even love she doesn't know how to name. He leans back, giving her space, but his voice is steady when he says, "I'm not trying to take anything apart. I just don't want you to keep pretending there's nothing here." Her breath catches. The silence that follows feels like the edge of a cliff, dangerous, necessary. When she finally meets his gaze again, her eyes glisten with a quiet, heartbreaking truth. "You already are part of it," she says softly. "That's what scares me." And just like that, the air between them changes, no longer curiosity, no longer restraint, but something raw, fragile, and undeniably real. It's almost a week before she reaches out again. This time, it's different. A short message, simple and understated, "There's a poetry reading tonight. You might like it." No greeting, no invitation, but he reads it twice, heart lifting in quiet disbelief. She's not avoiding him anymore. She's opening a door, just enough to see if he'll walk through. He does. The event is held in a small bookstore tucked between old brick buildings, its windows fogged from the warmth inside. The air smells of paper, coffee, and rain, familiar, grounding. When he arrives, she's already there, standing near the back, her hair falling loosely over one shoulder. She turns when she senses him, and for the first time in days, her smile looks real. He joins her, careful not to disrupt the fragile calm between them. The lights dim, and the poet begins reading, words about loss, memory, and the strange mercy of being seen. He watches her as she listens, eyes glinting in the candlelight, expression unguarded. Every line seems to echo something between them, every pause feels like a reflection of their own silences. Halfway through, she glances sideways and catches him watching. She doesn't look away. Instead, she whispers, "I told you you'd like it." "I do," he murmurs. "But maybe not for the reasons you think." Her lips curve slightly, but there's a vulnerability behind it, a soft, nervous energy, as if she knows what he means but isn't ready to say it aloud. After the reading, they step out into the night. The city hums quietly, rain still falling, streetlights painting the pavement gold. They walk without speaking, their footsteps splashing in rhythm. Everything between them feels balanced on a thread, fragile, precious, waiting. At a quiet corner, she stops beneath an awning, the rain curtain shimmering just inches away. She looks up at him, her expression thoughtful, almost sad. "Do you ever wish you'd met someone at a different time?" He studies her face, the faint creases near her eyes, the gentleness in the way she asks. "Maybe it's not about time," he says softly. "Maybe it's about finding the right silence between words." For a long moment, she just looks at him, searching, measuring the truth in his tone. Then she steps closer. The air shifts. Her hand lifts slowly, hesitating midway as if asking for permission. When her fingertips touch his jaw, it's feather-light, a simple gesture, yet it carries all the weight of everything they've both been holding back. She brushes a raindrop from his skin, her thumb lingering just a second too long. Her voice is barely above a whisper. "You still want to know what I was thinking that night?" He nods, afraid to break the spell. She exhales, eyes never leaving his. "I was thinking, what would happen if I stopped pretending I didn't want this?" The words settle between them like the final note of a song, delicate, irreversible. He doesn't move. He doesn't need to. The world feels smaller, quieter, perfectly still. Her hand remains against his face, steady now, and in that single touch, everything unspoken finds its shape. When she finally pulls away, it's slow, reluctant. The rain fills the silence, but neither of them feels the need to speak. Because in that moment, she's let him in, not with words, not with promises, but with truth. And that's all he ever wanted. The weeks that follow unfold with a gentleness neither of them expected. There's no dramatic confession, no sudden rush towards something reckless, just a quiet, steady rhythm, like the soft ticking of a clock they both finally stop trying to outrun. They begin to share their days in small, unremarkable ways. Morning texts about the weather. Afternoon coffee breaks where words aren't necessary. Evening walks that stretch longer each time, filled with a silence that feels less like distance and more like understanding. He starts to notice the little things she does when she's comfortable, how her shoulders loosen when she laughs, how her voice softens when she talks about her students, how her gaze lingers when she thinks he's not looking. She's still careful, still composed, but she no longer hides the warmth that sits just beneath her calm. One evening, they find themselves sitting by the river. The city hums faintly behind them, lights reflecting across the slow-moving water. She leans back on the bench, exhaling. "It's strange," she says, her tone light but thoughtful. "I used to think peace was about being alone." He glances at her, smiling softly. "And now?" "Now," she says after a pause, "I think it's about being understood, and still being allowed to be quiet." He lets her words sink in. That's what he's always felt with her, not noise, not demand, but space. Space to feel, to hesitate, to just exist without needing to define it. She turns to him, eyes meeting his. "You make things feel slower," she admits. "Like I don't have to be anyone other than who I am." He laughs under his breath. "That's funny. You make time stop altogether." She rolls her eyes gently, but her smile doesn't fade. And then, almost absent-mindedly, she reaches out, her hand resting over his. It's not a question, not an invitation. It's a choice. He feels it, That same calm pulse of warmth that's followed them since the cafe, only now it's grounded, sure. No more tension, no more pretending. Just two people who found something rare in the quiet. The world around them fades, the sounds of passing cars, the wind, the water, until all that's left is the steady rhythm of her breathing beside him. She leans her head against his shoulder, the weight of it light but certain. For a long time, neither speaks. They don't need to. Everything that needed saying has already been spoken in pauses, glances, and small moments that no one else would notice. Eventually, he breaks the silence, his voice low and warm. Remember the first time I asked what you were thinking? She lets out a quiet laugh, eyes half closed. How could I forget? I said you didn't want to know. He tilts his head toward her, smiling. I think I always did. Her fingers tighten gently around his, and she whispers, and now you do. The night air carries her words away, but their meaning stays, a quiet truth settled between them. There's no need for promises or declarations. What they've found isn't fleeting, it's steady, grown from honesty and restraint, from the courage to feel without rushing to define it. The camera would fade here, soft light flickering across their faces, her head still resting on his shoulder, his thumb tracing slow circles across her hand. No more questions, no more hesitation. Just the quiet certainty of two people who finally stopped running from what was always there, and found peace not in perfection, but in the stillness of being seen. If this story touched you, if you believe love can grow in silence, in pauses, in unspoken understanding, stay for the next story. Subscribe, share, and let yourself feel every quiet heartbeat of slow burn love.